Okay, welcome everybody. My name is Caroline Van Rompuy. I'm the Relations Director of XPLUS, and I'm very glad to be your host this morning. Thank you for calling in with so many of you. I see that people are still dialing in, but we are in front of a fabulous long weekend, lots of sunshine, and what is better than to start the Friday morning with an XPLUS breakfast full of intellectual food. And I hope you have your croissant and coffee at hand for the coming hour. The theme for today is value from data. And all companies have loads of data, filling up petabytes of disk space. But the question is, how can we get your data to work? And today we show in 3 presentations how data can work for you and how you can use data to generate business value. Never stop learning is one of the key values of XPLUS. So we do this session in collaboration with our sister companies Luminis and BP Solutions. And I want to end with a little quote of a famous man, Albert Einstein. He says, "Curiosity has its own reason for existing." So with that quote, I present you the speakers. Sven de Bie, who will give a customer testimonial. He is Manager Digital Innovation at Fabory. Then we have Jettro Coenradie, Data Evangelist at Luminis and author at Manning. And lastly, Tim Daniels, Data and Business Architect at XPLUS. So I hope you have a lot of curiosity to listen to these 3 interesting speakers. Some practical details. The presentation is recorded. So leaving if you stay in the presentation, it's consent. Please stay muted during the webinar. However, we like interaction. So if you want to make some remarks or raise some questions or have a little discussion, this can always be done through the Q&A button where our moderators will respond to you. Then you will get an email with a link of this presentation, of the recording. And for additional questions after the event, you can always contact me or the general address info@xplus.eu. So enjoy the session, and herewith I hand over to our first speaker, Sven de Bie.
All right, thank you, Caroline. I will share my screen. Here it is. Just to double check, everyone sees my screen, I guess. All right. So I've been asked by XPLUS or BP Solutions whether I can share the story of what we have done so far, from descriptive to over-predictive to ultimately prescriptive analytics. The story so far, but I will come back to that in a bit. All right. Here. So first of all, who am I? Short introduction. So I have 20 years of experience in developing digital platforms in all kinds of roles, especially 8 years, last 8 years in technical wholesale, and 5 years currently at Fabory in different roles, from an e-commerce project manager to an enterprise architect, and currently as the manager digital innovation, which I'm leading a small team of some data experts and architectural experts. Enough about me. Shortly, Fabory. So already for 76 years, we are known as the masters in fastness. We do that already in 11 countries in Europe, from which our headquarters and our central warehouse is located in Tilburg, Netherlands. We have around 1,000 employees. Also, mostly in the Netherlands and Belgium, 60 to 70% is located there. And we have a different strategy for large and small accounts, and we're mainly focusing on the OEM and MRO business. If you look at what I'm focusing on creating peace of mind for that large accounts and that OEM business using digital technologies. And today I will share my experience from starting with the data project, what we have encountered along the way, and which decisions we have made. We have only 50 minutes for this story, so it will be pretty high level, but you can always contact me if you want to know more, if you want to discuss about choices made. But I will give you a brief insights on what happened at Fabory in the past 2 years. So if we look back to 2021, where it started. We had an angry bird. Was a customer, was not amused that they haven't seen any innovation anymore. And this feeling was basically because they have had a lot of production line stops. So this was a customer who had a production line, and we caused a couple of stops at that point, which didn't happen in the past. In the same period, we had a supplier who said to us, we're not going to support a platform anymore. We've built it, it's not our core business, but we've built it, we've maintained it, but we're going to stop with it to focus on our main business. So we needed to find something that could replace it. And as an enterprise architect at that point, I was involved in both situations. I used the opportunity to share one of the ideas I had. So for customers, wholesale is mostly a black box. You send an order in, and hopefully we will deliver it. At the moment, we've agreed on it, of course. So the idea what I was is to show what is happening inside of that black box, to being transparent, because that's one of the values I personally have. But with that, we can also easily, in an earlier stage, we can detect whether a late delivery, which can cause a production line stop, can happen. So the board liked my idea, and I got some time to work it out. And at that point, we have started to prototype. It took a couple of months before we had the first prototype available. And the prototype was mainly really manually loading in, creating something Power BI, because we had Power BI. And at that point, just showing it to the customer, having conversation with the customer directly, having conversation with our internal logistics team. Okay, what do we want to show? What is possible to show? Where do we have trust in? Also to show to our customers, but also on the customer side, what do you want to know? How can you improve your operations? And with that, we came to a couple of iterations. We came to a prototype. And during that conversations, we also have experienced a lot of new needs from our customers, all on data. We knew all the needs for their operations, really practical. We knew all the needs basically for what kind of bolts and nuts they want to have. But the data need was basically something that they didn't talk about much. So with this conversations, we've learned a lot new things of a customer, which was already for 30 years a customer at Fabory. So when we had these conversations, we have seen that, okay, let's build this. The customer was very happy, but yeah, now we really have to do it. So with that, so with that, we have to go back to the drawing board to come to a plan. Okay, we have a prototype now ready, customer likes it, but how are we going to make sure that it gets updated every day? The data is validated because it was conceptual, not everything was 100% correct, etc., etc. So what do we need to do there? What we started here is, first of all, we started with it goes blank, to a data warehouse. That was the first start we made. So with the data warehouse, we completely built from scratch with a tool which we investigated with an external partner of us. So with an external partner, we've looked in, should we build or buy it? What kind of tools do we already have? We have, for example, Power BI, SAP, we already had Extract Universal, we already had some Azure AD set up. So in those parts, how can we make sure that we can maintain things easily, and how can we also move forward? And having that scalability and flexibility, because also something that Fabory is known of is their flexibility. So you also want to show in your digital experience that we are flexible and we can adjust quickly. Next one. But during that conversation we had with the customer, we also had the idea to okay, what are we going to show in that report? We want to show what is the possibility that a line stop can occur, and how can we calculate that? So for that, we thought, okay, we should be able. We are not doing anything with machine learning yet. We should be able to do that with machine learning. So we started contacting partners, okay, to look into, is this possible? To which extent is this possible? And we came out with BP Solutions, so the sister company of XPLUS and Luminis, to start that project, put it that way. And based on that, we started with a complete end-to-end process. So what can cause a line stop? Okay, it's not on stock at our place, or it's not on stock at our supplier. How can we look at that situation? Oh, we haven't delivered it yet. Oh, it's somewhere on a pallet, somewhere in our warehouse. That was the reason. So we've looked at all these reasons why it can happen, and based on that, we created this complete process flow. And with that process flow, we have identified what are the issues. We put data next to that, and we've said, okay, so this part is underperforming. This part, we have issues from our gut feeling. So we've had all people from all around the organization, from sales, from supply chain, from transport, from planning, etc. All kinds of people around the table, and we pinpointed what are the things that involve this. Of course, now in retrospective, we know it was the end of COVID period. So also keep in mind that we also kept in mind that, yeah, maybe it's situational right now because of the whole supply chain issues there are worldwide. With that process flow mapped out, we looked at, okay, how does it now compare? So we've created a first draft of a model in a short half year, and with that draft, we looked into, okay, how does it look like? How can we evolve? So we first started with the idea, okay, let's just research whether it's possible to just say, okay, this delivery is going to be late or not. With all these kinds of things, we've tried a lot of models, but at the end, with our data, the best model was to come to, okay, how many days will it be late or will it be in time? So basically from the order moment until the moment we have, we need to have the goods. And based on that, we can also in the future, we can simulate, okay, when are we going to order them? What's the best moment? Now, all these things were going well. The data warehouse was being built, machine learning. Yeah, we were making progress in iterations. And that was also the moment to think, okay, what are we really doing? We were still working on that idea that we had for that customer, but how are we going to put this into a solid, let's say, future state? So there we've reviewed the strategy around this, which we basically didn't have. We just said, okay, we want to have this, customers happy, let's build it structurally, and let's hope that more customers like it. And based on that, we've said, okay, what do we want to do in the future? What is our main goal? If you look, for example, in the combination of reporting and what we want as a company. And if you look at our OEM business, basically we know we have forecasts, the customer has forecasts, we know a lot of those customers, we have pretty good relationship for a long time already. So we said, what if customers don't need to order anymore with us? We just know that, because you should imagine that a bolt or a nut is maybe 3 cents, 5 cents. You have expensive ones, but that are the costs. For every bolt that is missing and someone needs to walk, that is tremendous more than the value of the product. So they don't want to spend too much time on bolts and nuts because it's way too expensive in comparison to what it's worth. So we came up with the idea that they don't want to order anymore, and that based on all the data we have, we're going to order for them. But for that, they need to trust us, because they're going to say, you are doing our orders, so you are in control. But yeah, what I said, for that they need to trust us completely. So we have some steps in there to first say, okay, going to suggest to customers, and then if they always say, yeah, it's okay, don't ask me again, then basically we have that trust. If you look back to the report we have said, okay, but how can we show things? A lot of customers complain because they know the excesses, everything what doesn't go well. That are the issues. That's where it gets escalated, etc. But much more, luckily, much more goes well. So you also have to show what goes well. So that's what we do in these reports. We build trust with our customer, being transparent, showing that more things are going well than wrong. And if you see that now back, for example, in some measurements for the delivering these products at these production lines, we're on an average of 99.6% that goes well. Still, 0.4% goes wrong, but 99.6% goes well. So a lot goes well. To make sure that customers trust us, we need to know for sure that the data is right. And for that, we've seen, okay, we need to do some data governance here, because otherwise we're going to show data to customers which is not complete, or it's missing, or it's not validated, or we see strange values. So for that, we started also a data governance project and hired someone who is full focus on data governance and can make sure that we have that set. Looking forward, so where we are right now also is that for the machine learning part, so we have 2 tracks now, 3 tracks, a pillar of machine learning, a pillar of the dashboards that we show to our customers, and then the data warehouse, the technical infrastructure that is available to make sure that we can do that. So what we currently are now with the machine learning track is we're continuously improving. We're still not yet there. We thought for, I think, 3 times that we were at 95-99% for final version, but then we're going to check it with basically put it in production, have some tryouts, doing some pilots, and then every time something came up, no, that's not right, that's going wrong, we missed something there, and based on that experience, we've learned a lot, but you also see the importance of getting the data, getting the business involved, knowing really what the data is. We're a very operational company for which people don't look very much forward. It's really day-to-day business. So you also see that sometimes choices that have been made, people don't know why a process goes like that. So you have to try it out, see what happens, and then go back and we have to test it again. And I think this is something also which you will see in the stories of Jettro and Tim later, is that the business knowledge is really important to have, which for us is not an issue, but it's a challenge to get the right people on board with the right knowledge. And sometimes also do some research by people, let people do some research to what is really going on. Also in Q2 2023, we have that report. So it took roughly 1.5 years for that report, what we saw earlier, to have it really in a final state. So now, since April, we have it in a final state. It gets updated every night. Some things get updated every quarter. Customers can see it. We have rolled it out to around 500 customers. And this is really what customers like. They said, oh, this insights, I don't get it anywhere else. I want to see this. Can you also do this? And we have the flexibility with Power BI, for example, to create new reports and to easily extend it for customers. So looking forward, at the end, we of course cannot foresee the future, but we know we have a lot of data available and a lot of knowledge in the company. But we have to make sure that we get the right data and knowledge. We mix that together, that we know what we're talking about. And next to that, we have embraced that this idea of the data warehouse with the machine learning track and the reports, that combination is a very strong combination, and that we decide to hire a whole team starting from Q3. So we have 3 additional people for the team to completely focus on this part. Of course, we will keep making the model better and better and better and better until we are at a position that can really add value to our procurement teams. But then, until then, we just keep asking difficult questions, keep creating awareness, which is very important because we've seen that that also improves some processes, and keep spreading the importance of digital innovation. Finally, I have 4 takeaways about my story. Don't forget what is accomplished along the way. Sometimes you look at the end product, so we don't have a model yet. But if you see all the kinds of questions that we have asked, the end-to-end process, for example, the awareness we have created also improves a lot in our situation. Also, talking about a drawing doesn't say anything to customers or to your own team members. So we have visualized it with a prototype, tried it out, created the prototype also for the machine learning, tried it out with a small group, and that's how we get things rolling. Of course, use direct customer feedback. We had our internal colleagues on board, the customer on board. I was involved in that, and we get really different conversation than there were before. So have someone which has a different angle on the situation, and also have that person into the customer conversations to have direct feedback instead of going through an account manager or something. And last but not least, of course, full support of the board. If I didn't have full support of the board, then we probably wouldn't be here, because that full support, trying out stuff, take smart risk, being okay sometimes with failures, yeah, that's what an innovative culture drives. So for that, that's the most important part. So this was the end of my presentation. I will hand over the story to Jettro. And yeah, if you have any questions, reach out to me via LinkedIn or whatever, and then we can discuss also about it more in details if you want. Back to you, to Jettro, I think.
Thank you, Sven. So I will take over the screen. Okay, you should all see my screen now. If not, okay, then I'll expect someone to tell me. Thank you, Sven. It was nice to hear this vivid use case and see that it's how it actually works in real life. I want to tell you something about how we at Luminis approach data-driven projects. And let's take one step back. And if we look at data, a very important part of data is that it's all around us. So it's everywhere. Everywhere you look, data is produced. It's not always measured. It's not always put into a data store, but it's all around us, and it flows through your organization. If you read literature, if you watch the news, data is very important. Data is money. Big data is big money. And it promises golden mountains. So if you just gather your data, then do the magic. These days, the magic is AI. Everybody in the news talks about ChatGPT and what it can do for your business. So AI is even more money. So big data is big money, and AI is even more money. But is it that easy? One of the things that you have to that you have to take in mind is that by mastering the data flow, you can ensure that your data is accurate, accessible, and actionable, and that it drives better decision making across your organization. That's a mouthful, but it's very important that you understand your data, that you check things like quality of the data, that you understand the meaning of your data, and there's a lot of things before you can actually get value out of that data. But what kind of data do we have? So within an organization, the most well-known data is operational data, which is the data that is just common in your organization. Like if you have an e-commerce company, then the orders or the products, all the data about those things are, well, they are well known. Usually they are in databases and you can collect them. So you can give information about the amount of orders. You can probably give information about which products are sold the most. But the moment that you start combining data, or you are aggregating data over time, I mean, if you want to determine which products are getting better sold over time, or if you want to know a combination of maybe the weather and which products are sold better than others, then you're even using external data, and you combine your external data with operational data that produces analytical data, and based on the analytical data you can get even more insights. And more insights usually gives you a better way to get more data, more value out of your data. And that's in the end what we're going for. We want to use our data to get more value out of it, make better decisions. And in the end, well, not everybody, but there are also situations where understanding data doesn't have anything to do with money, but for a lot of businesses, the money still is very important. One of the views I really like is this one. I saw it on Hacker Noon, which is a pyramid. And what you see is that a lot of people want to start at the top of the pyramid. So they want to do AI, they want to do deep learning. Well, maybe someone already starts like, nah, give me just more analytics, more metrics. But still you see that you're like in the top of the pyramid. What we don't want to do, or what we usually forget, is that to get value out of data, we first have to collect it. And well, you can collect it in the three ways that I mentioned before, like the external data or the operational data. But if you collect it and then don't store it, then you still cannot access it. If you store it in a way that you cannot access it, or that the quality cannot be guaranteed, then how can you make decisions upon your data? So it's very important to make your data trustworthy. You have to clean it. Maybe you have to check if there's no anomalies in there, and there's all kind of other quality metrics that you can produce on your data as well, before you can actually look at your data and learn from your data. And then, well, if you even want to go up to AI and machine learning, then you have to make sure that, for instance, your data scientists that work on the data, they should be able to trust it. So it's very important to not start at the top of the pyramid, but to have a look from the bottom, see if all the other processes are there. If you have high quality data, and then without the high quality data, or with the high quality data, then you can start thinking about models that you want to train. And even if you want to train models, you have to have a very clear goal about what your models should do, but we get to that a bit later on. Maybe if you hear this, it feels like it's hard work. Maybe it feels even like climbing a mountain, which is a very specific job. You have to be very knowledgeable. You have to have a good condition, and well, maybe even a bit of luck to get to the point where you are. And it's the adventure that counts when you're climbing a mountain. If you're from a business, that might not be the things that you would like. You don't want to have the hard work and be in dangerous situations. Sometimes the risk is worth it, but often it's not. Another thing is that you have no clear sight of the road to take. So it's not that it's only hard to do, but you have no idea that if you're going into a specific direction, if you get to the point that you want. Well, that's what we learned about as well in the years that we are doing data-driven projects. And that's why we created our own approach when we do these kind of projects. I call it data or AI projects. It could also be more analytics projects. That doesn't really matter. The most important part in this flow is that you start at the left, where you are in business. So you're not in technology yet. You first have to understand what is the business problem, what's the business need, and if we tackle this business need, is there value coming out of it? So that's where we sometimes do business model canvas sessions, where we would just test ideas to see, like, is there a group of people waiting for this? Are they willing to pay for it? Is it valuable? Can we actually, if it would be a perfect thing, this project, then would we make money out of it? So you have to be able to measure it. And then when we feel like, okay, the first step, the project is viable, we feel that this is a good opportunity to reach certain goals and to get money out of it. Then we start thinking about the domain model. We start thinking about, do we have the people with enough business knowledge in this area? Maybe we already identify one of the most significant use cases, that if we can do a proof of concept and like prove that we can do this, then we are in good shape to continue. Then there's something that we call the data quadrant model. Well, it's not we call it, it's something that is just available, where you can see, like, the solution. Is it a very specialized solution for very advanced business decisions? Then you have to create other tools. Then if you just want to explore a certain domain and want to see, like, what is in that domain, and can we get value out of it? So depending on the seriousness of the question that you want to answer, you also have to have a different kind of solution. Well, then we start with a project. We get a good overview of the quality of the data. So is it available? Is the quality enough to be able to use it? We start thinking about the team, which is always a multidisciplinary team. So it's not only technical people, it's by definition, for sure, also business people in there, because we are answering a business question. So it's important to involve them as well. And then we can slowly start planning the project. We do a kickoff of the project. We have a solution architecture, and we create a platform to do the project on and to move it into production. And then we can start sprints. And well, a sprint is just the work. It's not always predictable. So sometimes you feel with, for instance, software engineering, it's already getting better predictable. With data science projects, that's always harder. But still, we can try to make at least progression and see how far we are. We learn a lot. We put KPI dashboards in, and then we start over with the next sprint. Well, this might still feel like, oh, this is a long project. And you promised us, like, insights into the road that we're traveling. So can you give an example? Well, this is one of the examples that we did. This was a not very advanced project. It was a customer that wants insights into their analytical data. It was mostly dashboards, so there was not a lot of machine learning in there. But based on our approach, we could, within like 2 to 3 sprints, so this was like in 10 to 12 weeks, we already had dashboards in production that were actually delivering value to the customer. And the customer could get insights and could determine what the next use case would be that they want insights for. But how does this work? Because on one hand, we describe a process with a lot of different steps. And now we say that there's, in 3 sprints, we start producing value already out of the data. Well, we have a few things that we bring when we start this project. So we have our blueprints or accelerators, especially for cloud-driven projects. We do a lot in the Amazon cloud or in Azure. And we have blueprints to set up the complete platforms for most of the parts to get you into production. Still, you have to do the thinking yourself, and well, we can bring our experienced multidisciplinary team, and with this team we can help you. So we can help shape like the use cases. We can even help determine if it's a valid use case or not. So we can do a business model canvas session. But in the end, we can also have with the blueprints a complete production stack on Amazon with your data engineering solution, and even a production grade dashboarding, and maybe even the machine learned models. But those usually take a little bit more time. Well, what do we need? Because it's not that we can bring and you're done. We of course need the high quality data, because without high quality data, there is no way you can get value out of the data. And we need access to domain experts. Without these domain experts, it becomes really hard to understand the data and to see the quality of the data. I mean, we can check for missing data, we can check for outliers, but without a clear domain knowledge, it's really hard to determine what the data means and how we can get value out of the data. And we have to set clear goals. Sometimes it's just, here is the data, can you get value out of it? Well, that's a bit hard. We always have to discuss where they want to, in what direction they want to have data. Is there a clear goal? Is there a question that needs to be answered? And what I usually first ask is, if you have all the time in the world and you can read all the data in the world yourself, how would you approach it? What data would you need? What rules would you apply? And if there's no way to do that, then usually it becomes really hard to do it in an automated way via a model. Sometimes it works because it's too much data and people cannot get access to it. It's too much, and then we can just start, but it's really hard if there's no clear goal set. And of course, not all projects are equal. So sometimes you start small. So you start at the left side. There's not a lot of expense. You just have a data store, and we try to create some reports. This is, for instance, in observability domain used a lot, where we just have an Elasticsearch store, and we have a dashboard using Kibana or some other tools like that. Maybe Power BI on top of just a structured database. Well, that's not enough, and we need to work with the data a bit more, and we need to use it in multiple situations. You can add a semantic layer which tells you more about the data and which can combine maybe multiple data sources. Then you can add a data lake if you want to start collecting all the raw data as well before you actually create structure to it, and maybe even add a data warehouse on top of that for the structure to get quicker insights and to give it like throughout your organization access to the data. Yeah, so the most important part, I guess, is working with data is not easy. With the right knowledge and the right business people and the right question, you can go a long way as long as the data has a high quality. And of course, we can help. That's what I wanted to tell. Tim, do you want to continue?
Sure, I do. Thank you, Jettro, and good morning all. And thanks, Jettro, for already managing the expectation that creating value from data is hard. I will take now a bit the broader perspective and take you on a short tour linking data value and architecture. So let's get going. And yeah, once you see that people start to use a lot of metaphors around some topic, then you know that you have touched upon a somewhat complex and hairy subject. And that is clearly the case with data, because a lot of metaphors have been used to express its value or its potential value. It has been positioned as the new oil, it has been called infrastructure, and it has been called also an asset. So let's see what those metaphors actually, where they differ and what they have in common. So data as the new oil was introduced by Humby and Palmer, and the main message behind was that there is a possibility of great wealth for the owner of the data. Now, the people of the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development did not fully agree with that, because they saw, or they think, that the benefits should be much more on the side of those processing the data. So you feel that we are getting a bit into something political, which always makes life interesting, but that's not the purpose of this session here right now. And then lastly, there was Leni, especially Leni, who advocated to look at data as an asset. And that was in a kind of, his goal was to urge management to care as much about data as they do about other assets, which was, I think, a very good idea. But still, what is in common between all those metaphors is that in the end, there is real work required to create the actual value, because assets are a lot of the time about future benefits. Now, there's something else. More value typically requires more work. So basic logic is being respected, and the traditional categorization of analytics initiatives still works well, from descriptive over predictive to prescriptive, and that we already also saw in the session of Sven. So descriptive, then you are just trying to, like the word is saying, describe what the data is telling about your business. And the value that you can create in descriptive analytics is actually bound by your understanding of the nature of your business. And what can we say about the relation between operational and analytical systems is that those are typically, for those use cases, two fully separate worlds. So there's one-way integration, data is flowing from the operational world to the analytical world. And on the tooling side, let's simplify a lot, SQL is all you need. And luckily, and here I'm introducing some, let's say, non-standard mathematics. If we take the complexity of an operational system to be 1, then you could say adding descriptive analytics is just adding the same type of complexity to your complete stack. This changes when you're going predictive. Like in the case of Sven, they try to predict which orders would be late. Now, then value is actually bound by something that you don't really have a hand on, and that is the stochastic nature of the predicted phenomenon. Sometimes people also say the statistical nature, but I do prefer the word stochastic, because there's always a kind of randomness in many of the things we are trying to predict, and that puts actually a natural bound on the value that can be created, or on the quality of the predictions that can be made. The best way to, let's say, push that boundary up is to make sure that you have more data available, which is at the same time also, let's say, then a major potential blocking factor for this. On the integration side between operational and analytical, more or less the same story, but you start to need more than SQL, right? Because you need all those data science frameworks that allow you to do the predictive work. So slightly increased complexity. And then finally, and that was where Sven vividly described that they are still, let's say, figuring it out. It is really moving into this prescriptive world, where you use the predictions you make to do automated actions. And then the value is bound by the effectiveness of the actions you conclude based upon the predictions you have. And there, and I really love the way Sven was telling about it, you feel that you start to deal with a kind of, it feels nearly a living organism. All of a sudden, your operational and analytical world are actually integrated. They become entangled, because there's also data flowing back from the analytical world into the operational world. And you are entering a world of automation that requires constant attention. And that is also because by nature, prescriptive analytics mistakes will be made. Mistakes are to be expected. It's not that like within an operational system, if a transaction does not go through, you throw an error and you clearly have a problem. In the analytical world, you make predictions that can be off. And the I would even say the art is to determine when off is too much off. And that's actually at the heart of what's being called machine learning operations. So knowing what are actually the, let's say, challenges when creating value from data, let's look at how we can scale the story of Jettro, because Jettro went into the details of doing a single initiative, which is very nice and a good way to start, but typically an organization would like, in a way, to industrialize that kind of analytics initiatives. So there is a need to be able to scale. And for people in the agile world and familiar with SAFe, that is what is being called, what is the architectural runway that you need to put in place. Now, for those not so fond of SAFe, and if I'm looking at LinkedIn, that's quite a vocal population those days. We can also look at it from the perspective of team topologies, where there is a difference being made between the work done by the stream teams, creating the actual value, and the platform teams, helping those stream teams to create that value. So what can you do to scale? I would say principle one is deeply understand the data you have. And that is only possible if you start from a fair understanding of your business. Because data in the end is nothing more than a set of measurements about reality. In the context of a typical company, the reality is customers, suppliers, markets, competition, and the relation the company has to those entities in the outside world. And all that is being reflected in data. And it is the understanding of the reality and linking that to the data points you have, that is, let's say, a very important starting point. First, an understanding of the business, then an understanding of the data, and only then data can be used actually to deepen and to refine the understanding of the business, and in the end, start to make predictions and even prescribe actions based upon it. Secondly, it's very important to design for two things when dealing with data. The first thing is called data liquidity. It's a quite recent concept, but data liquidity is a measure for how easy it is to reuse and recombine data. Now that may sound obvious, but I think all of us struggle sometimes still today with combining information about the same thing in reality, but coming from different sources. Or think about the presence of sensitive data. Everything becomes much easier when sensitive data, like privacy sensitive information, is being removed or at least masked in the data. And secondly, I would say you need to design for a fluent creation of data products and their consumption. And let's say the full cycle is being shown here, from discovery of what is available to transformation of the data, because it's in the transformation of the data that the value creation takes place. That's really the value adding step. Then there's, of course, quality verification and compliance verification. And then what you've done needs to be packaged and published so that it can start to work in production and can be, let's say, found by others to build upon. So there are two elements to focus on. Is first of all getting the time down, right, to go from discovery to publishing. I think in the value stream movement, people would call that optimize for flow. But secondly, it's also important to see that you can actually increase the participation within the company to the data work. It has been called before data democratization. So that's the idea. The more people you can get to work with data, the more you increase the probability that meaningful things will be done with it. And then last but not least, implement the data observability. Also, in Sven's case, that was coming back. They always detected that something was going wrong. So it is very important to master that part as well. Those are what I'm showing here are the 5 pillars of data observability as introduced by Bar Moses. Is the data fresh? Do I see evolutions in volumes that I did not expect? Oh, and then very important, how is the distribution of the data? So how are the statistical properties of the data evolving over time? Because that is let's say a leading indicator whether or not you need to retrain your models. And then of course, keeping an eye on schema changes and having lineage at your disposal to see where all the data is coming from and going to, those are the fundamentals in that area. So if we combine all that, then we get the following. A deep understanding of the data and its link with the business, link to architecture. That's clearly in the space of business and data information architecture. And the benefits are that you can actually push up at the boundaries to value that we've detected a few slides before. Then design for data liquidity and let's say the production and consumption of data products at scale. Here we enter more, let's say, the classical application architecture, but still with a touch of data and already a big part also infrastructure. And the purpose is to realize more use cases faster. And then with the data observability, we are more down in the stack with the idea to detect problems early and avoiding looking for the needle in the haystack, as they say. So, as a kind of a wrap-up, you need a fairly solid architectural foundation to be able to scale your data use cases. Now, and I've used several times the word design for. It does not mean, of course, that those days you need to build all those stuff yourself. This is actually not recommended at all. And I had the pleasure to be at the Jupyter conference a couple of weeks ago, where for the second time in my life, I had the pleasure to listen to a Nobel Prize winner. Here it was Paul Romer. The first one was Bob Dylan. But what makes JupyterCon interesting is that by the nature of the Jupyter ecosystem, it attracts people from very information-intensive industries. So it gives the pulse, let's say, of what is to come. And there, I was a bit surprised to see that a lot of vendors were still in the space where they tried to accelerate, let's say, the transformation, packaging, and publishing tasks or activities in this data product creation cycle. And there was one which was actually, and that was the most advanced one, which was actually also putting quite some effort on the discovery part. And I think that is smart because in the end, I think that to create more value from data, it's of utter importance that more people actually can participate to the data work. And that, with that final remark, I would like to conclude, and thanks for your attention.
Thank you. I want to thank our speakers, Sven, Jettro, and Tim. But I also want to thank the audience. Thank you for your curiosity. And I wish you a wonderful long weekend. You have my contact details if you need more information. And we hope to see you next time. So bye-bye. Have a good time.